good evening to you. For those that are joining me live in the UK, my name is Jenny McCormack. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the centre of the UK. Thank you so much for joining me for my evening live this week. Just cleaning my stamps off in preparation, and then we will get cracking. It's been a gloriously hot day here today, almost too hot. But it's been very pleasant. Right, let me just wipe that one down and this one down, and we're good to go. Okay, so we're going to be using the Stamparatus today, and I'm going to be using Good Morning Magnolia, which is a lovely large floral stamp. Let's pull my blind up out of the way. I've got my windows all open, so I'm hoping it's not too hot. Okay, so this is the stamp set that we're going to be using, Good Morning Magnolia, and I've chosen to pair it with stacked stone as the background. So this is a new stamp for the annual catalogue, and as you can see, it's designed to emulate a stone wall. So what I thought I would do, I visited a good friend of mine yesterday, and she has a beautiful garden, and she's got dahlias and all sorts in there. Dahlias and lilies, and although this is a magnolia, I thought it reminded me of a typical English well-kept country garden. Now I know magnolia is a tree in its own right, but of course it could be up next to a wall. So I thought that would just be a nice summary card with the stone wall behind it and with the magnolia, with a little bit of colouring in using our blends pens today. So that is my plan. Because the stacked stone is a large stamp, as is the magnolia, I'm using my Stamparatus to help me position and stamp, so that I'm not having to hold a really big block. I have to say, whenever I'm using a big stamp like this, I tend to always use a Stamparatus, because I find the big block, which is this one here, it's even bigger than that one, this is an E, even that is quite difficult for me to hold and get some pressure on. The next one up is almost twice that size. So this is what we're going to use. I'm going to start off by stamping the magnolia, then I'm going to mask it with a post-it note, and then I'm going to stamp the stacked stone on top. Hi Yuta, thank you for joining me today. So we're going to start stamping that one. So I've got some layers of standard C6 card. This is actually larger than I'm going to need, because I'm going to stamp it and then choose which bit I want to cut out. You can look for some happy post tomorrow, Yuta. It's on its way to you. So just as a marker, I put a little dot in there, because that's going to be my sort of positioning. And if you are doing that and I'm using the paper underneath, always make sure your paper is tucked up into the corner. It's very easy for this to sort of start moving down. Okay, so always make sure that is up in the corner. If you wanted to, you could put a little bit of washi tape here. I happen to have some here. I always keep some on the desk ready for dies and all sorts of things. So I'm just going to put that on there and there to hold my paper in place. Okay, I'm going to position this piece of card on that dot. And the reason I'm doing that and not putting it in the corner is I haven't decided where I'm actually going to stamp my magnolia yet. So I'm just going to put my magnets down there. Okay, and I'm hoping that's in the right position for you. Oh, hi Fiona. So, let me see. So I want it to look as if it's against the wall. So I don't want it floating in the middle. I do want this end to come off the end. So it can either come off here on the left hand side or here on the right hand side. I think I'm going to have mine coming off on the left. Now I know that this piece of card is bigger than I need. So I'm just going to position that there. So this bit here should be most of the way off. I can always trim that edge down if I want to. So with my Stamparatus plate, I'm just going to bring that over and pick that up. So just a nice amount of pressure to pick it up. Okay, I'm going to ink that in, of course, early espresso. If you know me well enough, you'll know that's what it'll be. Hi Tracy. Hi Carol. You got back from work all right then, Carol? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink up this stamp. Now I know this is a little bit off the edge for you. Now after Sam, one of my lovely team, recommended some different technology, I've ordered that up and I'm still waiting for it to arrive because I was hoping it was going to be here this evening so that I could test it out. So no doubt it will be delivered while I'm working live, and then I'm going to give it a go and set it up, hopefully, if it works, for tomorrow. So that's where I'm going to pop my flower, my magnolia. So a good amount of pressure, just really all the way over, like so. Okay, so I'm happy with that, because what I'm going to do is have a little sentiment either down here or up here, depending on how I cut it out. Now what I want to do is create a mask for that, and so I'm going to use a large post-it note. Here's the sticky side here. Now a note on that, in Tesco's, in our local Tesco's, they have these large sheets on sale at the minute. So if you're struggling to find these large post-it notes or sticky notes, I can't remember if they're branded or not, but they have the large one in our local Tesco's, because it's with all the back to school stuff. So what I'm going to do is, because I want some of the sticky to be on the flower here, I'm just going to position this over there. That's okay, I'm not worried about the end bit. And re-stamp this so that I've got a mask. I don't need this extra bit here. Tear this little bit off. And I've got 2 layers, because it's always best, if you're cutting one out, you might as well cut 2. Oh, hi Verity. Thanks for joining us. I seem to do well for you joining us these days. I hope you're keeping well. So this is just for the mask. Now I could just have stamped this separately, to be honest, but if you know that part of this is going off the page, then you don't necessarily need a mask for that little bit. Okay, so my mask really only needs to come up to here, so I can just mark it. Obviously, if you're doing it to keep, then I would do the whole thing, but you don't need to see me fussy cut the whole thing in detail, so I'm just taking the bit that I need. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for a minute. I'm going to take my Magnolia plate off and wipe it. I'm trying not to get very inky. We will see. Oh, bless you. I'm considering making my Friday one later as well, I have to say. So I've got 2 evening sessions. I'll see what people think. So I'm just going to come down here and cut around this magnolia. Now obviously you could do this with multiple smaller flowers. You don't have to use a large flower. Okay, but you don't want anything, well, as far as I'm concerned, you don't want anything too fiddly to fussy cut. However, if you love fussy cutting, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm just cutting around the edge of the flower. Let's pull that little bit out. And you should, if you're doing a mask, be able to see the edge just on the piece of paper. And that, then you'll know that you're cutting just inside the line. Okay. So, if you've got any very fine twigs, then to be honest, you probably may not need to cut those out for your mask. Okay, so I'm doing this fairly quickly. Well, quickly for me. I know some people just whiz around, don't they? And let's cut this up here, because I know I don't need that bit for my purposes. Right. So I'm just going to cut around here. So the idea is we're creating a mask, which you saw me do the other day for the cookies and the chocolates, if you were watching me last week with that fantastic cookie set. But this is a very simple one stamp design with some masking. So I say just come in the edge so that you can see the edge on the piece you've cut out from. The main thing is that you don't have a wide border around it, otherwise you'll get like a halo around where the stamp is. And you really do want to use a post-it note or some very thin copy paper. You don't want to do this on card because it will just be too thick, and when you stamp over it there'll be too much of a ridge. Okay, let me take those out of the way. So that piece will do another cut out. Oh, hi Valerie. Hi Mary Joy. I thought you were away on holidays. Hi Lynn. Right, let's take these pieces out of the way. So there's my magnolia. I'm now going to cover him up with one of these, because I cut 2 at the same time, if I can separate them. There we go. So I've got one ready for another time. And then all I'm going to do is position this, let's trim that little edge off, that was my sort of marker. Position this onto my card, like so. So you should be able to see the very edge of the stamp all the way around. If it's glaringly obvious that you've got, you know, a huge bit over, then you could go back and trim that little bit down. Equally, I'm not worried if I've got a little bit where I've cut in too far. I'm really not worried about that. Now what you could do with this piece is separate it and just put it on as two, if you wanted to. Now I am going to add another little bit of washi tape to that, because that bit hasn't got any post-it note stick on it, and it's off the edge of the paper. And I might do the same here. So this is just to hold it in place. Now the thing to watch if you do this is that when you've inked it up, these will be inky. Word of warning, don't then peel it off and then put your hands over your artwork. You'll be disappointed. Okay, I'm going to put a tiny little bit here, because I know I'm going to cut this down. So this is just keeping it nice and straight, hopefully, on my paper. Okay, so far so good. Is that the Magnolia Verity or the Stacked Stone, or both? Because this is quite an imposing large stamp, isn't it? That's the thing. So with a bit of background, it takes the focus away. So I've positioned the Stacked Stone on here, which, if I've done it right, should cover the majority of my white card. I know it doesn't quite cover it at the bottom because I deliberately cut that too long. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to use Sahara sand for my stonework, and I'm hoping you can see this. You'll see some of this, if not all of this. I'm just going to ink this up. Now for anybody watching on replay, you'll be pleased to know that I've been a little bit more diligent in adding my Facebook Lives to YouTube. So now I've been doing them uploaded every single day after the Facebook Live, because Facebook videos can be notoriously difficult to find, whereas YouTube videos, you just have to go to my channel and then you're there ready to roll. And that you'll find them in date order, or you can find them by using a search term. Okay, so I'm going to pop this onto there. I've moved my magnet out of the way, and I'm just giving it a nice good press all the way over. When you do this, make sure that you've already put your mask down. It's a horrible feeling when you've done that and then realise you've actually stamped over your image. Okay, so there's a little bit of a halo around the edge, not a great deal. Okay, so I can pop this back in. I can actually see some of that ink still on there, and just add a little bit more pressure where I know the edge of the post-it note is. And it's surprising that only the width, the thickness of a post-it note can make such a difference. There we go. So that's better. I don't know if you can see, these are closer in now. And if I'm looking at my stamp, there's very little that hasn't of ink that hasn't been transferred. Okay. Okay, let me take that off and clean it before I do anything else. Oh, Magnolia. It's such a pretty set, I have to say. So pretty. Okay, so remember, these are going to be potentially inky. Alright, so I'm actually going to take those off and throw them away before I transfer ink anywhere else, because I know what I'm like. Okay, can take this off of here, leave those ready for next time. Voila. Oh, hi Linda. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're well. Hope you're feeling a bit better. Okay, so now I can peel away my post-it note and I've got my magnolia in all of its glory. So before I start colouring, I am just going to trim this down because I don't want to colour stuff that I'm going to cut away. And surprise, surprise, I'm going to use an espresso layer behind, and I'm going to be bold and use Magenta Madness as my flower colours. So I can decide from here, obviously I need to trim this little bit at the top anyway. I think what I'll do is position that top left and then cut it down and across here. You could cut your piece to the exact size, okay, but when you use it on the Stamparatus you wouldn't be able to stick it down because obviously the tape would be in the way of the stamping, but it's entirely up to you. Let me move that and my magnet out of the way. Oh, bless you, Linda. So, trimmer right behind me. So I'm going to trim this to 9.5 centimetres because this piece is 10 centimetres and my card is 10.5. So that's my pretty standard measurements for a single layered card with a border. And then this one is going to be 13.85, which is a centimetre smaller than the outside card. Now obviously you could add more magnolias, you could add the smaller ones, and you do all of that before you stamped your stacked stone over the top. Okay, so my little sentiment, it's going to struggle for space really. It might work down here, covered over a little bit, or up here. I could put him right the way across actually. We'll have a look and see. So I'm going to colour this, and I've got light and dark Granny Apple Green and light and dark Magenta Madness. Really bright, in your face, happy English country garden colours. And Fiona, I've got you to blame for that, because it was your lovely garden that gave me the inspiration for this today. Although I know they weren't magnolias. So I'm using my darker pen and the finer tip, coming in from the edge, so you've got a slight sort of feathered motion, and then using any of the darker highlights that Stampin' Up's illustrators have provided for you. You could do this easily with watercolouring. Just make sure you're using either watercolour paper and stays on, or shimmer white paper, and you would definitely need to use stays on so that that doesn't bleed when you add the water. So let's do this set of leaves first, then you can see how that's going to come about, because you don't need to spend all evening watching me colour, but if you haven't seen any colouring for a while. So what I then do is use a circular motion And I am using the fine tip here. Normally I would probably use the larger tip, but I know that this Granny Apple Green is running out, and there's more in this end than there is in the other. So just a note on that, if you're storing your blends, you want to store them horizontal. Don't be tempted to put them into a pot and have them standing up. However, if you find it's running out more on one end than another, then you could stand them in a pot with the lighter end at the bottom, and then you might find some of the ink in the alcohol will move to the other end, to the other tip. It won't flood, especially if it's running out, but you might find you get a little bit more life that way. Okay, so just using that circular motion to blend those lines in together. Now you'll see this more clearly on when I do the pink. I think I do need some maybe some yellow for the centre. Okay, I can't believe it's Friday tomorrow already for those that are watching me live on Thursday. It's also the last day of July, which is bizarre. So I will be ordering tomorrow if anybody is in need of any supplies for this month. And up until the 3rd of August, you can still get the Stampin' Up bonus vouchers. So for every £45 you order from the catalogue or the clearance rack from Stampin' Up, you will get a bonus voucher to spend in August. Now us demonstrators are very excited because our new catalogue goes live on the 4th of August, and this is the Christmas one. Its proper name is August to December mini catalogue. I'm still going to refer to it as the Christmas catalogue, I'm afraid, for my customers anyway. Okay, and that goes live, which means you as customers can order from it as well. Okay, I'm going to leave that one for a minute. I just want to do the pink to show you. So I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to use the dark Magenta Madness, and this is seriously bright pink, as you will see. It reminds me of like a really bright fuchsia pink. So again, going around the edges and anywhere there's a dark shade, or where you think it would be shaded because it's sitting behind some, behind another leaf or something. So this is the difference between a new pen and my Granny Apple Green, which was an older one, about to run out. And I can't tell you how long they last, because it depends on how much you use it, how strong you push on the tip. But I have some of mine. This set here has been going since July 2018, so 2 years that's been around, and that has been used obviously at coffee and card and classes by my customers, so it's not just me using it. Okay, right, I'm going to do just that for the minute in case you will fall asleep. There's always a chance. Hi Claire, hi Vivian. Verity can't wait for the new catalogue. So this is the light magenta, so you can see the coverage compared to the green, and you'll see the difference in tone because this one has yet to dry. So it does look quite a contrast, but believe me, they will run together really nicely. So let me just cover this area here, like so. And then if you use that circular motion between the edge of your dark and the content of your light, then gradually, and if you can see that, it will fade from one to the other and it will just blend together, hence the name. So let me whiz over this bit here. So the thing to remember with blends pens is you get a nice smooth finish, but they can come through, or they will come through to the back of your card. So you don't want to stamp this and colour it in on your base card itself. You'll want to mount it, even if it's the same Whisper White, and I'm just using plain Whisper White here. You'll want to transfer it across. Okay, look at that colour. Now I'm not the best blends colour in the world by a long shot, but hopefully you'll see that even with just some basic skills of this blending over the line, you can get a lovely finish. And with this fine tip you can get right into that corner as well. And you can go back and build up, and this paper won't peel or anything because there's no water involved. It's alcohol that's in the barrel of the pen, and that is evaporating as it's laid down, and that then leaves the colour. So I could go on and do that in a bit more detail. Yes, it took a lot of getting used to if you're not very good at colouring in, but all I would say to people is just persevere and practice, really. Right, let me just do this little one in here. So I'm going to give it the same technique, dark around the edge. You can see here. Just going to turn this round. Like so. And I think I'll do that, the stalk there in a brown, and then I'm going to add some yellow into the centre. So this one's nearly run out, so what I tend to do is put them in a pile on my computer if they're running out, so I know which ones to order next time, or I'll just make a note of it. Okay, there we go. So a bit of yellow in the centre and a little bit of brown for the stalk. See what I've got here. So I've got light crumb cake, which might do for the stalk. Yes, it will. So I'm not adding a huge amount of detail in there because it's a small area. And I have Dark Daffodil Delight, which is going to be for this centerpiece here. And obviously you could add Winker Stella as well to make it all nice and shiny. There we go. So that is my base design, and I'm going to stamp a sentiment onto there, and I think I'd like to use the hello if it fits. This might be a bit close. It might do. It's just a nice hello, isn't it? And I'm going to use early espresso. So don't forget to look after your masks, not the masks that you're wearing at the minute on your face. Look after those too. Okay, I'm just going to stamp this on a scrap piece of card. Yeah, it's a nice crisp stamp. Just looking to see how straight that is. If it isn't very straight, I can do another one. That will do nicely. Voila. Okay. Now if I had one, I could put a dark espresso layer behind it. I don't have one to hand, I don't think. Well, I do, but it's too big. Yeah, I could cut a slither, but I'm going to keep it nice and plain. So that is going to go onto there. I'm looking for my seal. Here it is. So all the way down. Just rotate it to the over the top to take the edge off. Covered in blends pens. At least it's not ink. That's one good thing about blends pens, is it doesn't transfer. There we go. Let's pop this onto the magenta base. So I've already cut and scored this card. So I'm going to pop that onto there. There we go. It's like somebody's smoke alarm is going off. Must be cooking something. So my hello, I think I'm going to pop up on dimensionals. I quite like it covering over that bit of leaf. I would be tempted to put it there, but it covers just a little bit too much of the flower for my liking. Could put it up here. Any preference? What do you think? Bottom right? It needs to balance the flower. So bottom, middle, or top. Let me know what you think. I'll put some dimensionals on ready. And we'll pop that down. Put 3 on. So bottom, middle or top. Any votes? Nobody's commented. Hi Jane. Verity says bottom. Yeah, and I think maybe just over the bottom of that leaf. Otherwise it looks like I've sort of not left enough space for it. Doesn't it? And Tracy says bottom right. That's good enough for me, girls. But somebody's going to put middle now. Oh no, we're all good. So there we go. There is our card. So with just some very simple masking. So although it was a big stamp, so I've used my Stamparatus. I stamped the flower first. I stamped it onto a sticky note. Popped the sticky note on, like so. And then using my Stamparatus, stamped this lovely stack stone background. Lifted the mask off, and remember, just give it a little bit extra push so that you've got a good coverage. And then I've coloured those in with Blends pens, Magenta Madness and Granny Apple Green, two of my favourites. So there we go, that's all I wanted to cover today. Obviously you could stamp the inside of your card and stamp your envelope to match, because we don't want any naked envelopes. I did use Early Espresso ink for both the outline and the hello, and a lot of people will say obviously that you need a Memento ink pad, but you don't. You can use any of our Stampin' Up standard ink pads, our water-based ones like this. Just make sure you give it time to dry before you add the alcohol blends to it. Okay, so I will be back tomorrow. I'm currently planned to be online at 3, so that is what I will be. But, oh thanks Carol, but I will take a poll for whether you would prefer me to do a later time on a Friday. So really I'm thinking either 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock. See what you think. So if you've got any preferences, shout. If not, I'll quite happily keep it at 3 o'clock on a Friday if that suits more people. So do let me know your preference on timing for Friday. And all that remains is for me to say thank you so much for joining me. All of these products are in the current Stampin' Up catalogue. If you haven't got the new annual catalogue, and or you haven't got the new Christmas catalogue, which comes out next week, then just comment or message me if you're in the UK and you don't have a demonstrator, and I'll pop one in the post to you. Thank you so much everybody. Stay safe and look after yourselves, look after each other, and I hope you can keep crafting. Thank you so much. Bye everyone.